evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to CK Bone Ministries. I am Carla K. Bone. I am broadcasting live to you on tonight. Yes, on tonight. And we are studying Battlefield of the Mind by none other than Mama Joyce Myers. We are studying Battlefield of the Mind by Mama Joyce Myers. Listen, we've been in a fantastic read, and this book has phenomenally changed my life. Let me tell you. It has changed my life. We have what we do every Tuesday. I just want to bring it to your attention. Every Tuesday at 7 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time, I come and do a live devotional with you on Mama Joyce Myers' book, Battlefield of the Mind. Then I come back like I am tonight, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. I come back and we are studying Battlefield of the Mind, the book. Yes, the book. And we're going chapter by chapter. This is a phenomenal read, chapter by chapter. And then part of your homework, once we get off the air, you have the whole week until next Tuesday to do your homework. And so your homework is Battlefield of the Mind, the actual workbook. This is going to help you to apply the things that you are learning during the week to your life. It's so many wonderful activities and questions that she asks to us in this book that I'm telling you, once you put it into practice, listen, it will phenomenally change your life. This is a great opportunity for you to change the trajectory of the first half of the year. We're going into our second quarter of the new year. This is a great way that you can follow along with us while we do this read, and then you can study with us, and then you can apply it by doing the homework. Listen, I got all three of these books from her website and from her e-commerce store, and it was about $45. You can certainly click on my website. I made it so simple for you, so you ain't got to be looking all over the place or going on Amazon or any of that. I made it simple. You can go right to my website at www.ckboneministries.org. ckboneministries.org. Click on the icon that says order my book. When you click on that, it takes you directly to Mama Joyce Myers bookstore, right into the e-commerce store, and you see all this material. Listen, I ordered this book a while ago, and I remember I even ordered the teaching material for Battlefield of the Mind. It's so much, and now I hear there's a Bible, and I have to certainly get a hold to that. It's a Bible that goes with this Battlefield of the Mind. And listen, you got to get it. You got to get it. That's all I can tell you, child. It will change your life. So we've been studying Battlefield of the Mind, and listen, I know I've been getting testimony after testimony, and even my own testimony of what change that I have seen even in my personal life, in my thought life, and all of that. Listen, I thank each and every last one of you who partner with this ministry, who are clicking that share button. Click that share button now. Be a good time. We're going to be talking about a wilderness mentality, which is a small little segment, and then we're going straight into about my future is determined by my past and my present, and it's talking about a wilderness mentality in chapter 16. We are going through it on tonight. Listen, you can like my Facebook page at CK Bone Ministries. You can certainly go to my YouTube page, and that's at CK Bone Ministries. My YouTube page is up and going. All of the videos, all of the teaching, everything is right there at your fingertip. Listen, you are not too late. So you said, okay, y'all on chapter 16. If I order my books, I'm going to be way behind. You got all of the videos, everything right there on YouTube. And you can certainly download our app at Good Seed Ministries. It's our parent ministry. You can download the app, go to media, and then when you click on the media button, it will certainly take you directly to CK Bone Ministries, and then you can click on that, and it will show you all the videos and everything, because we upload them as well. Listen, I want to get straight into the teaching on tonight, because it is a phenomenal read. She starts out with the introduction, and from the verse of Deuteronomy, the first chapter and the second verse, it says, "It is only 11 days' journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea on Canaan's border, yet Israel took 40 years to get beyond it." And she says, the people of the nation of Israel wandered around in the wilderness for 40 years making what was actually an 11-day journey. The children of Israel, they wandered for 40 years on an 11-day journey. It only supposed to took them 11 days to get there, but it took them 40 years to get there. And she proposed a question and asked us, why? Why do you think that is so? She said, was it their enemies or their circumstances, the trials that they faced along the way, or something entirely different that prevented them from arriving at their destination? Listen, we're talking about the children of Israel. I'm talking about how they went into the wilderness and it took them 40 years to get to Canaan. However, I want us to parallel that and think about our life and how long is it taking us to get to the promises of God in our life. And I want you to certainly think about that as we're studying this material. She says, God gave her a powerful revelation that has helped her personally as well as thousands of others. She said, the Lord said to her, the children of Israel spent 40 years in the wilderness making an 11-day trip because they had a wilderness mentality. Wow. She said the children of Israel stayed in the wilderness for 40 years, not because of their enemies, not because they were being defeated, not because, they was at war. They stayed in the wilderness because they had a wilderness mentality. And listen, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about what is a wilderness mentality and why is a wilderness mentality. Why did that prevent them from going into the land that God had promised them? Listen, we're gonna discover that together. She says in Deuteronomy, the 1st chapter, the 6th verse, she says, have you stayed here long enough? The Lord our God said to us in Horeb, you have dwelt long enough on this mountain. Now, she says, we really shouldn't look at the Israelites with such astonishment because most of us do the same thing that they did. We shouldn't look at that and say, oh, it took them 40 years. It was really an 11-day journey, because most of us doing the same thing. God spoke a word over your life and told you something that you were supposed to accomplish and you were supposed to do. Yep, I'm going to go ahead and raise my hand. And it's taking you way too long to get there. Is it because you have a wilderness mentality? We're going to talk about what that means. She said, we keep going around and around the same mountain instead of making progress. The result is it takes us years to experience victory over something that could have and should have been dealt with early and quickly. And she talks about setting your mind and keep it set. From Colossians, the 3rd chapter, the 2nd verse says, and set your minds and keep them set on what is above the higher things, not on the things that are on the earth. So we can certainly see the pattern that reading Colossians, the 3rd chapter, the 2nd verse is about setting our mind about the things that's beyond the earth and not the things that's on the earth. And we're going to talk about that and why is a wilderness mentality a really destructive mentality that prevent you from entering the place in which God promised. She says, God showed me 10 wilderness mentalities that the Israelites had that kept them in the wilderness. A wilderness mentality is a wrong mindset. I want us to define that. A wilderness mentality is a wrong mindset. So you may be thinking, no, I don't have no wilderness mentality. Like, I'm not way out there, with my thinking. I'm not way out there with how I live. A wilderness mentality has nothing to do with that. A wilderness mentality is when you have a wrong mindset. Your thinking is wrong. Your thinking is off. We used to say that when we were younger. Your thinking is a little bit off. When you have a wrong mindset, you have a wilderness mentality. She said, we can have a right or wrong mindset. The right ones benefit us. The wrong ones hurt us and hinder our progress. Colossians 3:2 says, it teaches us to set our minds and keep them set. She said, some people have a wilderness type life because they are a wilderness. Some people got a wilderness type life because they are a wilderness. I know you thinking about wilderness, and you're probably thinking about the wilderness, like out in the forest, in the country, but what she's saying is that some people have a wilderness type life. Watch this, because they are a wilderness. I want us to explore that a little bit more. She says, there was a time when, and she's giving us an example. She said, there was a time when my circumstances were not really bad, but I could not enjoy anything in my life because I was a wilderness on the inside. You can be a wilderness yourself on the inside. And I want you to think about that. What is a wilderness? A wilderness is just, if you think about it just from an abstract view, it's a place where it's kind of dark, kind of gloomy, got overgrown of brush and forestry and a lot of debris. And if you just think about a wilderness and what that looks like. She says some of us are wilderness. We are a wilderness. She says, Dave and I had a nice home, 4 lovely children, good jobs, and enough money to live comfortably. I could not enjoy our blessings because I had several wilderness mentalities. My life appeared to me to be a wilderness because that is the way I saw everything. It was her thinking that needed changing. She said, some people see things negatively because they have experienced unhappy circumstances all their lives and can't imagine anything getting any better. When you have a negative view of things, could it be because maybe you saw the negativity all your life? Everything that you saw, everything that you were around, everything you were exposed to. Maybe you had parents that were negative. Maybe you had siblings that were negative. Maybe you had aunts, aunties, cousins, uncles. Maybe your center of influence of people that were around you, they were just always negative. They could never see the positive in anything. And she says, some people see things negatively because they experience unhappy circumstances all their life and can't imagine anything getting better. Then she says, there are some people who see everything as bad and negative simply because that's the way they are on the inside. If you see things negatively all the time, it's because you probably negative on the inside. As within, so without. She says, whatever its cause, a negative outlook leaves a person miserable and unlikely of making any progress toward the promised land. You know, negative things happen to us every day. And we see negativity every day in our everyday lives. You could be going to the supermarket or going to the gas station and you see or hear some negativity, but that don't necessarily mean that we have to process that and we have to own it. I see negative stuff all the time, and the first thing I say is, oh no, I'm not chasing through those rabbit holes. I'm not even going down that route. I'm not even gonna let that upset me, irritate me, get on my nerves. That's water off a duck's bridge. Or I try to think the best. Well, maybe they really didn't intend it that way. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I try to do all I can to stay positive. But let me tell you something, it's challenging in this negative world. It is. But we can certainly start trying to set our mind and focus our mind on something positive. Find something positive. Even if it's something negative happening around you, find something positive that came out of it. I try to do it all the time. Some negative stuff just happened to me just the other day. And things didn't go in my favor like I wanted it to go. And I found something positive. I said, well, thank God it's over with. You know? And I moved on. I'm always trying to find something positive. She said, this is one of the saddest things that can happen to a child of God is to have so much available and yet never be able to enjoy it. She said, most of the generations that the Lord called out of Egypt never entered into the promised land. Instead, they died in the wilderness. And she said that's one of the saddest things that can happen to a child of God is to have so much available and yet never be able to enjoy any of it. Sometimes we can have too much until you can't even enjoy it. I remember in my early walk, I had very limited clothing. I just didn't buy clothes. I would buy towels and linen and things like that. I just didn't buy clothes because I kept saying to myself, one of these days I'm gonna lose weight. And and it seemed like that task was defeated and it never happened. And I remember when I didn't have a whole lot of clothing, I would go in the closet and it was just apparent what I was going to put on. I was like, okay, well, I wore that yesterday, so I guess I'll wear this one today because I didn't have too much to pick from. And then as the Lord began to bless me and I came out of that shell and saying, hey, I'm just going to, go ahead and buy clothes, and if I lose weight, then I lose weight, so be it. But I'm not going to hold up from not enjoying my life until I get to the point of where I like to look. And so I started buying clothes, and now I go in the closet and there's so much that I can pick from until sometimes I get frustrated. I go in the closet, I just keep looking. My eyes go up and down and up and down. And, it seems like the more we have, the less we're able to enjoy. And so that's why sometimes I just go through my closet and I just purge and just get rid of some things. Because sometimes you can have too much. It reminds me of a parent I know that give their child everything. Their child has all the latest toys, everything you could possibly think of. But they don't play with any of them. Because we give them too much too soon. So sometimes it may feel that way with papas, with God, he'll give us a little bit. That's because he really wants us to enjoy it. She said, I was one of those people for many years of my Christian life. I was on the way to heaven, but I was not enjoying the trip. Is that you? You're a born again believer, you're on your way to heaven, but you just is not enjoying the journey, enjoying the trip. Well, you should make a point to try to enjoy your everyday life. Enjoy life to the fullest and enjoy the trip and the journey. Because that's what we all on. We all on a journey to get back to the Father. And the process between where we are now and arriving with the Father is the little piece in the middle. And that's the part that we got to enjoy while we yet, have a chance to. Stop putting off tomorrow what you can do today and start learning to enjoy your life. She says, I pray that the rest of the section of this book, here are some things that she wants us to be able to do, is to walk out of our wilderness into the glorious light of God's marvelous kingdom. And then we're on chapter 16 where she's talking about my future is determined by my past and my present. In Proverbs 29:18 in the King James Version, it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. She said the Israelites had no positive vision for their lives. They had no dreams. Is that you? Do you have a positive vision for your life? Or do you still dream like you used to do when you were little? She said they didn't have no positive vision for their lives. They had no dreams. They knew they were from where they were from, but they did not know where they were going. Does that sound like you? Sometimes we read about the children of Israel and we just nod our head, shake our head and say, man, they just missed it. But sometimes if you really assess the situation, we're doing the same thing they did. Are you living life without a vision? Are you going through life every day and you stop dreaming? Life then got a hold to you and choked out all of the hope that's inside of you and you just don't dream again? Well, it's time to turn your dream machine back on again. It's time to dream again. It's time to get your journal out and just start writing down some ideas and start dreaming. When you were kids, and I know when I was little, I used to sit up and dream that one day I'm going to be driving a Maserati or a Jaguar and I want to live in a big old house. I used to draw like big mansions and put it up like on a hill. I used to dream big when I was small. Well, God wants us to turn our dream machine back on again. Because as long as we have breath in our body, we can still dream, we can still have hope, and we can still cast a vision for our lives. She says, but they did not know, they knew where they came from, but they did not know where they're going. Do you know where you're going in your life? Or are you just getting up every day living? I used to ask people all the time, well, how you doing? They said, well, I'm just still making it. No. I try to be positive. Be positive with your life. I'm fantastic. I'm glorious. I'm doing wonderful. Not I'm just trying to make it. We got to enjoy the journey till we get where we're going. She said they did not know how to see with the eyes of faith. In order to dream, you got to see with the eyes of faith. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. That's faith. We got to turn our faith on and see through the eyes of faith. If you dreaming and it's something that you can obtain tomorrow, your dream ain't big enough. She said, anointed to bring deliverance. In Luke, the 4th chapter, 18th and the 19th verse, it says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has set me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. She said, she come from a background of abuse. She was raised in a dysfunctional home. And, so do I. I grew up in a background of abuse, and I was raised in a dysfunctional home as well. She said her childhood was filled with fear and torment. The experts say that a child's personality is formed within the first 5 years of life. Her personality was a mess, she says. She says, I lived in pretense behind walls of protection that I had built to keep people from hurting me. I was locking others out, she says, but I was also locking myself in. Does that sound like you? I know for me, I lived in a wall of pretense. I lived in a life of pretense. I used to pretend that I was not Carla, I was somebody else. And I would just come up with various different names. And I would pretend that I have a 2-parent home, and I was going home and my dad was going to take me and we were going to go get ice cream. I used to live in pretense all the time. People who live in pretense is people who are not happy with their life. They pretend. See, I'm going somewhere with that. There's a lot of people right now that's on social media, Facebook, Instagram, all these Twitter, all these social media pages who still living in pretense. They post pics and post scenarios, they spin stories and make you think that their life is vainglorious and they having this wonderful, fantastic life, but they really living in pretense. They really hurting on the inside. They really living a life that's without hope. They probably bogged down in debt, living in debt, and debt to the debt ceiling and just collapsed on top of their head. They probably trying their best to work and manage and take care of their homes. But when you see them on social media, we look at them and we thinking, oh wow, they got it going on, this everything is great, in their world and this and that. We are repeating the pattern of the children of Israel. We're living in pretense. And listen, God told me that right before the pandemic hit, it's time for us to come out of the shadows. Stop living in pretense, pretending like we're somebody else when we're not, and pretending like everything is well and it's not. Yes, we can speak those things as though they were, but we also can share our testimony that it be a help and a blessing to someone else. That's how you kick the devil in the teeth. You kick him in the teeth by sharing your story and sharing your life and being a blessing to somebody else who's struggling. But if we all keep pretending, then that means that the generations behind us, they will look and believe that this is the life, and they'll be trying to pattern after you, and your life is a serious fraud. That was one of the reasons why I wrote my book. Why me? That's the reason why I'm coming out of the shadows. It's time for us to stop lying to other generations, making them believe that we levitated down here from heaven and we live in this vainglorious life, and we're not. Yeah. Yes, we are overcomers. We can have victory. We can live in the blessings of God. But we also can share our stories and our testimonies and let people know, listen, there was a point in my life when I was messed up. There was a point in my life when these things were occurring in my life. And let me show you how I was able to overcome. If we don't start helping other people, we are going to have a lawless, limitless, generation that's coming behind us. That's going to be full of social media, this social media platform of pretense. So listen, let me go and get off my soapbox. She says, I lived in pretense behind walls of protection that I had built to keep people from hurting me. I was locking others out, but I was also locking myself in. That's what happened when we pretend. Yeah, you lock people out. You don't want people inside of your inner life because you don't want them to see the real mess. But what God is saying, no, let them in. Let them in. Because he can turn your mess into a ministry. He sure can. It says, but I was also locking myself in. I was a controller, so I was filled with fear that the only way I could face life was to feel that I was in control, and then no one could hurt me. I felt that my future, she says, would always be marred by my past. I thought, how could anyone who has the kind of past I do ever really be all right? It's impossible. However, Jesus said that he came to make well all those who were sick, brokenhearted, wounded, and bruised, those broken down by calamity. I know you thinking to yourself, how could I went through what I went through and how could I be well? Listen, I've been through a lot in my life, and some people, they shudder to think how I'm able to sit here sane and in my right mind and able to sit here and to teach and to use my life for the glory of God, considering all that I've been through. But listen, I tell people all the time, all that I've been through with the comma, and then I say, but God. But God. But God. Jesus came to set us free. Jesus came to open the prison doors and set the captives free. I did not make any progress until I started to believe that I could and be set free. Listen, you can start making progress when you believe you can make progress. I remember I was talking to someone on the phone about a week or so ago, and I was telling them, I said, the person was telling me, well, this is just the way I am. I said, no, you're not. That's not the way you are. You can make progress if you believe you can. I believe that when I was living a dysfunctional life and I was having all kind of problems in my life, I believed that I could be set free. And Jesus found me on that road to freedom, and he set me free, and then I recovered, and so can you. She says, I had to have a positive vision for my life. I had to believe that my future was not determined by my past or even my present. Do you have a vision for your life? Let me ask you that. Do you have a vision? Where do you see yourself? What is your vision for your life? What is your vision for the next 5 years for your life? Where do you see yourself? I'm going to give you time to think about it. What is your vision for the next 5 years of your life? Where do you see yourself? She said, you got to have a vision. I had to believe that my future was not determined by my past and even my present. Your future is not determined by your past or your present. Get a new mindset. Believe that with God, all things are possible. See Luke 18:27. Give him your nothingness and watch him go to work. All he needs is your faith in him. He needs for you to believe that he will do the rest. Yes. She said, eyes to see, ears to hear. In Isaiah 11 chapter 1 through the 13th verse says, and there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. The Spirit of the wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord, and shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord, and he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears. Now, she says, we cannot judge things accurately by the sight of our natural eyes. That's a huge statement. We can't judge things by the sight of our natural eyes. We must have spiritual eyes to see and ears to hear. We need to hear what the Spirit say not what the world say. I need to repeat that again. We need to hear what the Spirit say. Right there, that's where you need to click that share button. You should, right there, click that share button. Click it. And the reason why is because you got some friends and people in your network that call you all the time and tell you what the world is saying. Well, they say it on TV and such and such is saying, and then they say it. No, we need to be able to see with our spiritual eyes and hear with our spiritual ears, and not what the world is saying, but what the Spirit is saying. Let God speak to you about your future, not everyone else. She says, what is the problem? Numbers 14th chapter, the 2nd through the 3rd verse says, all the Israelites grumbled and deplored their situation, accusing Moses and Aaron, to whom the whole congregation said, would that we not die in Egypt, or that we had died in this wilderness? Why does the Lord bring us to this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and little ones will be prey. Is it not better for us to return to Egypt? We know people that do it all the time. Just like the children of Israel. God delivered you out. And then you wondering, should you that came out? Should you go back to where you just got delivered from? We do it all the time. We're repeating the same pattern that they did. She says, I encourage you to look over the passage very carefully in Numbers 14 chapter 2nd and 3rd verse. She said, notice how negative these people were. They were complaining, ready to give up easily, preferring to go back to bondage rather than press through the wilderness into the promised land. How many of us is willing to go back to bondage rather than press forward into the promised land? How many of us, I'm going to make it plain, are willing to go back to our ex, their relationship, than to go forward into the promised land that God promised us? And then it says, and they did not have a problem. She said, actually, the children of Israel, they didn't have a problem. They were the problem. Wow. Some people, they say all the time, you don't understand, I got problems. I got serious problems. I got issues. We hear that all the time. But did it occur to you that maybe you really don't have problems? Maybe you're the problem. I know I used to go to God all the time, complaining about my husband. Oh, Lord, I need you to change him. I need you to, change, what he do. And he just sit there and watch sports all the time. Lord, I need you to change him, and I need you to fix him, and Lord kept telling me, Curly, he don't need the fixing. It's you. Because you trying to control everything that's going on in the house. You trying to control everything, all the kids, your husband, there. He's like, I don't need to work with him. I need to work with you. How many times have you watched something on TV? It could be a TV teacher or one of the TV preachers come on TV, and the first thing you think of, I sure wish that Sister Jane was watching this, because that's exactly how she is. Maybe you need to watch it for you. I know I did that several times. I said, I wish so-and-so was watching this. And Lord said, no, you watching it because you're the one that need it. She said, bad thoughts produce bad attitudes. Numbers, the 20th chapter, the 2nd through the 4th verse says, now there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled together against Moses and Aaron. And the people contended with Moses and said, would that we had died and our brethren died in this plague before the Lord. And why have you brought up the congregation of the Lord into this wilderness, that we should die here and our livestock? She said, it is easy to see from their own words that the Israelites were not trusting God at all. They had a negative failure attitude. When you get to complaining, maybe it's because you not trusting God and you have a negative failure attitude. She said they decided they would fail before they even really got started. I know I did that several times. God asked me to do something and it seemed like it was over my capacity and ability to do, and I had visions of failing. I just figured I was just going to fail miserable at it. And you know what? The very thing that I had envisioned is exactly what happened. I wound up failing at it because I had a negative attitude, a negative mindset on that thing. Sometimes you got to talk to yourself and say, you know what? I will not fail. You know what? I will be prosperous. You know what? Everything that I touch, it shall prosper. Every place my feet tread, it should be holy ground. I cannot fail because I have God. You got to speak those things as though they were. Have a positive outlook on your life. Simply because the circumstances was not perfect. Sometimes we envision failure because the circumstances was not perfect on how you got to where you are in the first place. So because it didn't happen the way you thought, now you're thinking that you're going to fail at it. And that's a bad attitude. It's a wrong mindset. It says bad attitudes are the fruit of bad thoughts. So you got to check your thoughts at the gate. Got to check them at the gate. And Numbers 21st through the 4th and the 5th chapter talks about a lack. In this chapter, she's talking about a lack of an attitude of gratitude. It says, and a journey from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom, and the people became impatient, depressed, much discouraged because of the trials of the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is any water, and we loathe this light, contemptible, unsubstantial manna. In other words, they get so far and then they start complaining. And then they started talking about Moses and talking about Aaron. And then they talking about God and saying, why did y'all bring us out of the land of Egypt into the wilderness just for us to die? And then we don't have this thing, because and further on in the chapter it says we don't have meat and we don't have water, and he struck the rock of Meribah. We ain't got meat, and the Lord said, I'm gonna give you so much as a screw out of your nostril. Then they said, we don't like this manna. They still, no matter what God gave them, they were still complaining. Let me ask you something. Is that you? Is there anybody who you know that's in your social media network that's like that? It doesn't matter what they have or what God blessed them with, they still complain. That would be a good time for you to click that button and share it. Share it with them on Messenger and say, you know what, this lady CK Bone is on, and listen, she's talking about having an attitude of gratitude. She says, in this passage we see evidence in the Israelites of the tremendous lack of gratitude. A tremendous lack. She says, their forefather Abraham, he went through some disappointing experiences in his life, but he did not allow them to negatively affect his future. No life with strife. She talked about Abraham, and when Abraham was leaving out of the land, him and his nephew Lot, Lot left with him, and they got over into another land, and then Lot and their herdsmen began to argue amongst themselves, and it was building up strife there. And Abraham acknowledged it, and he saw it, and he went to Lot and said that, listen, maybe we need to split up. You can read more about it in Genesis 13, chapter 7 through the 11th verse. He told him, he said, maybe we need to separate. Because Abraham understood and said, listen, I don't want any strife between me and thee. And he said, let us just split. And that's exactly what they did. They split. Abraham understood. He knew the dangers of living in strife. Therefore, he told Lot that they needed to separate in order to walk in love and to assure that there would be no strife between them in the future. Sometimes you got to separate yourself from folk to make sure that you can walk in love and it will be no strife between the two of you. If you with somebody or around somebody, it could be a family member, I don't care who it is, a sister, brother, uncle, auntie, grandmother, the mother, it doesn't matter who it is. If you're around them and you constantly, y'all bickering and arguing amongst each other, tit for tatting with each other, y'all competing and being competitive with one another, and y'all, backbite and talk about each other, y'all gossip over one another, y'all envying underneath each other, y'all competing on top of that. If you finding yourself in situations like that, it's best that you do what Abraham did. He separated himself from Lot. And he said he did it because he understood that the dangers of having strife. So he separated in love. Sometimes you need to just separate yourself. I don't care who it is. If you walking in strife, separate yourself and do it in love. Because there's a danger in walking in strife. She says, we must remember that Lot had nothing until Abraham blessed him. Just think about the attitude that Abraham could have had, but chose not to. Think about it. The promise was given to Abraham. Lot just went along for the ride. And then they get halfway of where they were supposed to go, and then now they're striped and built up. And she said, think about it from Abraham's perspective. If he was full of pride, he would have said something like this: Lot, you wouldn't have stank if it wasn't for me. I'm the one that got the promise from God. I'm the one that God poured over this wealth into. You wasn't even supposed to be here. That's what Abraham would have said if he was in pride. If he was in pride, he would have said, listen, you wouldn't have nothing if it wasn't for me. People who walk in pride, they tend to remind you of everything that they did for you. I know that's tight, but it's right. People that walk in pride, they remind you of what they did for you. I was dating some many years ago, and I remember a young man made a comment and said to me, he said, you wouldn't be nothing if it wasn't for me. And I thought to myself, wow, you give yourself a whole lot of credit, don't you? Because the God I serve said he created me and fashioned me and made me, shaped me into his image and into his likeness. He breathed life into me and called it a living being. That's the God that I serve. That said he knows every string of hair that is on my head. That said I'm the apple of his eye. And I thought this young man actually thought that I wouldn't be nothing without him. And I thought to myself, even in my young fashioned mind, is wow, you give yourself a little too much credit for the little piece that you played in my life. But I thought to myself, wow, how prideful you are. So if you can contribute who I am to you, then who gonna contribute who you are? Come on now. If you so busy working on somebody else, then who working on you? We are who we are because of God. Even if someone has influenced your life, it was only the characteristics of God operating through them. Come on, we got to get glory back to the Father that helped you into who you are. We can't take his credit. We must remember, Lot had nothing until he blessed him. Think about the attitude that Abraham could have had, but chose not to. Abraham could have had that attitude, but he chose not to. He knew that if he acted properly, God would take good care of him. Listen, if you act properly, God will take good care of you. There's so many things. Somebody did something to me back here in February, and it was really painful. It was really hurtful. And they reached out to me by text and acted as if nothing had occurred, nothing, had transpired. And what they did, it wound up costing me quite a bit of money. And when they reached out to me, I wanted to say something so bad. My flesh just kept saying, "Child, tell them what you want to say." But my spirit wouldn't let me do it. And I did respond, and I wound up sending a message that said, I thank God that I'm a Christian woman, because if I wasn't, I probably would have typed something other than this. But I wish you well, be blessed. I had to say something, but I couldn't say it. what that flesh wanted me to say. So listen, she says in this next segment, she says, lift up your eyes and look. Genesis 13, chapter 14 to the 15th verse. We're going to speed along. The Lord said to Abram, after Lot had left him, lift up now your eyes and look from the place where you are, northland, southland, eastward, and westward. For all the land which you see, I will give to you and to your posterity forever. Listen, is it amazing to you that after Abraham conducted himself properly in the right way as it relates to his nephew Lot, when he could have rose up and said, you wouldn't be spit if it wasn't for me, but he didn't. He acted properly because he knew in acting properly God was going to bless him. So when he departed, do you think it's amazing that in Genesis the 13th chapter 14 to the 15th verse, it says the Lord said to Abram, watch this, after Lot left him. Abraham acted properly. God didn't give him the next promise until after Lot left. Come on now. I'm helping somebody right there. When you act properly. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm mad. Yeah, you don't understand what they did to me. I get all that. Yeah, you don't understand. I got every right to feel the way I feel. I understand all that. You probably do have every right. But when you act properly, God will wait till after Lot left and then gave him the next promise. When you act properly, God will wait and then he'll tell you what he about to bless you with this time. When you act properly. But see now, if Abraham would have acted improperly, I wonder what he would have next got that next set of promises from the Lord. Probably not. He says, this passage clearly reveals that even though Abraham found himself in less desirable circumstances after his separation from his nephew, God wanted him to look up from the place where he was to the place that he wanted to take him. God gave him another whole vision after Lot left. That's why I don't know who I'm speaking to tonight. But, somebody probably left your life. Maybe it was a relationship. Maybe it was a boyfriend. Maybe it was a girlfriend. Maybe it was a friend, Maybe somebody left your life and you still pining and whining and thinking about who left. Maybe God is calling you to do like Abraham. Look up. Look up. So he can give you the next promise and cast the next vision for your life. She says, Abraham had a good attitude about this situation, and as a result, the devil could not keep the blessings of God from him. Abraham had a good attitude. That's what I want to propose to you today. That's what I want to propose to you as your challenge on tonight. I want you to maintain a good attitude. No matter what happened, no matter what somebody said, no matter whether or not it went in your favor, no matter whether or not you were waiting on something and it just didn't work out the way you thought, no matter what the news is, good news, bad news, or indifferent, no matter what the situation is, no matter what your finances look like, no matter how many people disappointed you, no matter how many people who won't celebrate you or stand up with you or be there for you or support you, or no matter what happened, you'll maintain a good attitude. You'll maintain a good attitude. The Bible said, pray for those who spitefully mistreat and misuse you. We pray for them. That's the way we do it. And we ain't nothing wrong with a little separation. Maybe we separate in love. That's how you stop the devil from being an accuser of the brethren and carrying your name up, saying, now look at what she done did. Because you trying to get somebody's back, get their goat. Your challenge this week, no matter what happened, you'll maintain a good attitude. Listen, she says, I encourage you to take a positive look at the possibilities of the future and begin to call those things which be not as though they were. From Romans, the 4th chapter, the 17th verse. She says, think and speak about your future in a positive way. Think and speak about your future in a positive way, according to what God has placed in your heart, and not according to what you have seen in the past or are seeing even now in your present. I want you to think about that. I want you to paint a vision for your life. I want you to speak about your future in a positive way. And then no matter what happened in your life, you'll maintain a good attitude. Can you do those things? Can you challenge yourself this week? No matter what happens this week, I maintain a good attitude. I will speak my future in a positive way according to what God has placed in my heart. And I would not see those things as though they are and as though they were, but what they could be. I'm going to do that this week. That's your challenge this week. Let me pray for you. Father, in the name of Jesus, I just come right now, Lord, before you with all of your children who may be watching me by some social media platform. I pray right now, Father, in the name of Jesus, Lord, that you will help us this week, God, to apply what we have just learned about the wilderness mentality. Help us, God, not to be the wilderness, that we would not live in a wilderness mentality. A wilderness mentality being negative, a wilderness mentality in lack and insufficiency. Help us not to live in a wilderness mentality or be the wilderness, having a negative mindset. Lord, help us to have a positive mindset, thinking positively about our future. Help us to be able to envision and dream again about the good things in life and the scriptures and the promises that you have given us. Help us, no matter what happens in our life, that we will maintain a positive attitude. Lord, I pray that you will wrap your loving arms around us, protect us, keep us in your care. I pray, oh God, for your grace and your mercy. It is sufficient. May it rest on our shoulders this week and for the rest of our lives. It's these blessings we ask in your Son Jesus' name. Amen. Listen, I'm certainly excited. I'm excited. Are you excited? That wilderness mentality, it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. In chapter 17, she's talking about the wilderness mentality number 2. Someone do it for me. I don't want to take the responsibility. That's what we're going to be reading on next week. Wilderness mentality number 2. Someone do it for me because I don't want to take the responsibility. Listen, we all certainly can relate to having certain people in our lives and even maybe ourselves where we have had a wilderness mentality. I know I have went through seasons of my life where I had a wilderness mentality. All I could contribute to my thinking was negativity because that was the culture and the environment for which I was born and raised. So it's very hard to fight your way out of it. But listen, let me tell you, you can get out of anything with God. With God, all things are possible to him that believe. God has been the center focus of my life and the foundation for which I stand that has helped me and enabled me to start coming out of it. Now, is my life perfect? Do I always think and speak positively? Not all the time. But I do recognize when I am not my best. And I immediately capture those thoughts and I bring them back into submission of the Father and of the kingdom of God. And you can do the same as well. I certainly hope this message has encouraged you. I hope that it has encouraged you when you will pick up the book, go into my website and order it. It's Mama Joyce Meyer's book, Battlefield of the Mind. I am prayerful that you not only will order that, but you will certainly get the workbook because the wilderness mentality, there's a activity in a workbook that helps you to apply this to your everyday life. I certainly hope that you join me every Tuesday. I'm here on the 7th, 7 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. I am here doing the devotionals on Battlefield of the Mind. I come back like I did tonight, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, doing our book, reading our book. Listen, if this ministry has been a blessing to you, you can certainly go to our website at www.ckballministries.org. You can certainly go and click on our Donate Now button. You can send a gift or a donation to our ministry. Every gift and donation that you give, it is a tax deductible gift. We are a 501c3. Your donations, your partnership help me to be able to continue to do what I do and taking this uncompromising gospel around the world, helping people just like you and me. I'm so glad that you joined me. I'm so glad that you are partnering with me. And I'm so glad that you are clicking that share button. I'm thankful for your partnership. Your partnership means a lot to me. I ask that if you partner with me by number one, sharing it with someone in your friend network. 2, partner with me by prayer. Please pray for my ministry. Pray that this ministry that God has given me to help and empower hurting women around the world will reach its maximum potential. And then 3, you can help me with pennies by donating so that I can continue to build out even more of the vision that God has given me for this ministry. I am so excited for just the opportunity to come inside of your living rooms, your place of work, and or your home to be able to deliver you this message. It's coming from Battlefield of the Mind, Mama Joyce Meyer book, who I call her my mentor, my friend, my partner, my ace boom boom, who has truly and totally helped change my life. She has placed the breadcrumbs down that I have picked up, and now it is my prayer that I can put crumbs down that other women can come behind me and pick up as well. And then we can just keep on paying it forward. Listen, I thank you for joining me on tonight. I am so appreciative to each and every last one of you. I constantly pray for you. You can always reach out to me on Messenger or through our social media. I respond back personally to all of my messages. I'm so prayerful for each of you that we'll all reach our maximum potential in Christ. Listen, you can do me a favor. You can certainly go on and download our app. Yeah, we do have an app. Download our app. Our parent ministry is Good Seed Ministries, and we have an app. If you download that app, you will have this ministry at your fingertip. It's in our media folder, and it'll say CK Ball Ministries. But if you download the app through Good Seed Ministries, you'll have access to everything that I just taught on tonight, and so much more. Download our app. It's so simple. You can do it just like this. That easy. Please remember there's 3 pillars that we live by here at CK Ball Ministries. We listen, we learn, and we love. Remember, we walk by faith, not by sight. See you next Tuesday on the 7th.